And I was lucky. I had a really good family doctor. She was lovely. She's retired now, but she was fantastic. And I went to her and I said, I've got this idea. Could I have the one cortisol test that's available to us at a 24-hour urinary collection of cortisol to measure total cortisol and free cortisol output? And could I have that? And could I have it possibly several times? Because I want to play around with this idea. And she said yes. Amazingly. If she hadn't said yes, I'd probably be still sick in reality. But she said yes. She was brilliant. Now, and to be honest, I still get emotional when I think about it. Yeah, I had to pause this recording right there because I do get extremely emotional about that, and she was an immense help. Anyway, what I did was, initially I tried taking the first T3 dose of my day earlier, and I felt better almost immediately within a day, really. And I thought, this is interesting. So I then systematically went back to my doctor. I got the collection bottle and did my first test. And what I did was, over a period of months, I gradually took my first T3 dose from, say, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning when I was up, and I gradually moved it back by an hour every 6 or 8 weeks, and did another test. And so I had 24-hour urinary cortisol tests ranging from about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And I went through that whole period of the 4 hours where cortisol is usually produced in high volume, and a little bit before that. And the results were just, they were unbelievable. There was a complete correlation between free and total cortisol output and that time I took that dose. The earlier I took it, the bigger that output was. In fact, when I was taking it, when I got up, my levels were on the floor. They were really low, and it was obvious I had a cortisol problem. But by the time I'd taken them at the 4-hour mark or just before, they were absolutely at the top of the range. In fact, one of them, I think, was the cortisol output was over the top of the range. And in fact, that was too much for me. And I understood the problem then. It completely clicked. Basically, my T3 level, when the adrenals were working, was just too low. It was way too low. And I knew that I had to take the T3 dosage sometime during that 4-hour window, which I worked on. I figured it out, and I was well. I basically got well after that point. It fixed it. It was the last piece of the puzzle was a cortisol issue, and that idea is basically the basis of the Circadian T3 method. And I did that 13 years ago. And I sat on that idea, and I've sat on that idea for 12 or 13 years, thinking that I'm kind of unusual. I was the only person in the world who would ever need it, unbelievably, which is crazy now when I see what's happening with patients in various countries using it. But I sat on that idea until I wrote the book, and I wrote the book, Recovering with T3, and I wrote a T3 dosage management process, which I'm really proud of because I think it's incredibly subtle, and it results in a really lowest T3 dosage for the day that can be managed to provide really good health. And I'm really pleased about that, but I put the Circadian T3 method in there as part of that process, and I really didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was a big deal. Until the book came out, and until lots of thyroid patients who are not just using T3 but are using natural desiccated thyroid and T4, T3, and they started to use it. They started to take their T3 component of their medication and use the Circadian T3 method. And lo and behold, what we're seeing is many, many, many patients resolving their adrenal issues. It's too early to talk about the success rate of this yet, but I mean, what we're seeing is, I think, at least 60 to 70% of the people that use it are getting real benefit from it. Many of those are completely coming off drugs like hydrocortisone and other adrenal support. And there are some people that use it that appear to get little benefit. My own suspicion is that there are other problems that are going on that prevent that. But we're going to learn more about this as time goes on. But it's having a profound impact, far, far bigger than anything I'd ever imagined. And even those people that don't get 100% benefit are getting a lot of benefit. They're able to, in many cases, reduce their adrenal support significantly. The other interesting thing is when this technique works, people are not just boosting their cortisol levels, they're boosting all their adrenal hormones and getting the adrenals to work correctly, which means people are getting natural levels of the whole range of adrenal hormones. You have to remember that cortisol is just one of the glucocorticoids. There are many. The adrenals produce dozens of hormones. And so having the natural function of the adrenals when they are not being suppressed by hydrocortisone or other drugs is very important, and it leads to people feeling truly well. And I'm frankly amazed by how well it's working. And no, there is no guarantee. It won't work for everyone. There's a big debate about whether the Circadian T3 method heals adrenals or not. And I don't really know, and frankly I don't even care. All I know is that it seems to work really well, and people are feeling significantly better, and in many cases they're coming off drugs like hydrocortisone. Interestingly, there was a piece of research done in it's done a few years ago. It was by Russell, Harrison et al. And the research article is called Free Triiodothyronine has a distinct circadian rhythm that is delayed but parallels thyrotropin levels. It's a bit of a mouthful, I'm afraid, but basically what it's saying is they did a study that looks at free T3 levels, and they found that free T3 peaks in the body in a circadian kind of pattern, and that it peaks around about the time the adrenals start to produce the highest volume of cortisol for the day. Now, this research, I can't quite... Oh, it's 2008. I couldn't see the date a minute ago. It's 2008 it was done in. Obviously, I didn't have that research many years ago when I was developing these ideas. But it actually makes so much sense that for people on T3, for people on natural desiccated thyroid, for people on T4, T3, that if their systems aren't working perfectly right, if their dosage management of the medication isn't ideal, then it probably will not mimic that natural circadian process when FT3 levels, free T3 levels, should peak at around the same time that the adrenal glands begin to do their highest work of the day. And that's for people that get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. That time would be around about 4 or 5 a.m. And that is a big final piece of the jigsaw for me, because it actually validates the ideas that I had many years ago. If people are not having high free T3 levels in the tissues of their adrenal glands when the adrenal glands have to work, then they're probably not putting their adrenal glands in the best possible situation to do the job. Now, I talk about T3 in the tissue of the adrenal glands being the important thing because and I don't actually believe it's the pituitary that's been affected by this. And the reason I don't believe that is that for many people on natural desiccated thyroid and on T4, T3 combinations, there's plenty of T4 kicking around. And the pituitary has a big advantage over many tissues. The pituitary has its own deiodinase enzyme production and can do its own local T4 to T3 conversions within its own tissues, which means the pituitary gland has a real big advantage because it's able to maintain very, very high free T3 levels at almost all times. And it probably has the highest concentration of free T3 out of all the tissues in the body. So I really don't believe it's the pituitary that's been affected here. I really do think it's the adrenal glands themselves. So that piece of research, it really finishes it off for me. It makes the whole thing make a lot of sense. And there is no magic here. It's nothing special. It's just mimicking what the body does naturally. There is no surprise that this works at all. No surprise.